Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Daniel Wargo, and this is the third video in a 5-part video series I'm releasing called Anyone Can Learn to Sing. In this series, I teach the exact method that I use to teach voice, which I break down into 4 pillars of singing. And this video is on the second pillar, which is going to be placement. So I'm just going to run the title and then we'll get into it. Placement is an important pillar for a number of reasons, but mainly because it determines how you actually sound when you sing. We use our voices in different ways for a variety of different reasons, and understanding how we do that and why is really imperative to becoming a better singer. Knowing about placement and how it affects your specific voice helps to tell you the places where your voice is strong and also the places where your voice is weak. And when you know that, you can then hone in and focus on those weaker spots and either build them up or find ways to cover them up. A cover-up, you say? Intrigue. All right, so where do we start? Well, we should start by talking about the 2 different vocal placements that are widely discussed about the voice. And these 2 placements have to deal with where the voice is resonating. So the 2 that are just widely talked about are chest voice and head voice. You may have heard of them before, but I'm going to discuss how I feel about them, how I view them, and how I talk about them and teach them. So the chest voice takes place in the chest. It resonates in the chest. It's kind of our biggest cavity for resonation. It's our strongest. It's our most grounded. And when we talk from our chest voice generally. It's where I'm talking to you from right now. It's this grounded, strong voice. And it's also the same when I'm singing. So when I'm transferring to singing, that's my chest voice. It's my stronger voice. So that's the first placement in the voice. The second placement is when the chest voice transitions up into resonating in the head, and that's called the head voice. It's pretty easy to remember why, right? So the head voice is a weaker voice, and it does not have that same groundedness, that same heaviness that the chest voice has. And it sounds a little like this. It's a little softer. It's not quite as strong. I sound a little like I don't know what I'm saying when I talk up here. And we generally don't talk up there. Sometimes we answer the phone like that. Hey, how you doing? So the head voice is resonating in the head, and it's not providing the same strength or the same amount of resonation or groundedness that the chest voice has. And that's purely because the space is smaller. So that's generally as we're moving up into higher notes, we pass the chest voice and we transition into the head voice. And so that's why a lot of singers will feel weak. They'll say, oh, I don't sound good on high notes. Well, that's because you're singing in your head voice and it feels weaker. It's not necessarily because you sound worse. It just doesn't feel as strong. It doesn't feel as comfortable because it's just not where you're used to singing from or talking from for that matter. So those are the 2 placements that are widely discussed. I like to teach from a third placement. I like to add a third placement on top of that because there really is another change, another transition that happens in the voice. And I call this placement the crown voice. So it's kind of taking place or resonating in this area, the top of the head. And for male voices, it's really easy to determine what that is. And it's the falsetto. That's the voice type that Michael Jackson uses a lot, or Justin Timberlake. And that sounds like hoo-hoo. So we've got that kind of higher sound that's not quite a head voice. It's not the same as me talking like this. It's different. It's up here. It's more Mickey Mouse, right? That's one thing for male voices, but for female voices, it's still the same thing. It's just not as obvious. So there's no like falsetto per se that comes out that's just drastically different. But there's still the same thing in the female voice where there's a transition where the head voice is not really enough and we need to start thinking about placing the sound in the crown or kind of above the head even. So I like to use that. It's the crown voice. So I've broken it down into chest voice, head voice, and crown voice, 3 different vocal placements. And it's really important that we kind of understand how we use those and what they feel like. So there's kind of an easy exercise that will help you feel all of this stuff. And that's just to kind of do a siren sound. So what I like to do is I like to go from the lowest spot of my voice in my chest voice all the way to the highest spot and back down. So what that might sound like for me is ooh. So that why don't we just do that together? We've done some weird things here. Let's keep doing some weird stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to start low. We're going to go high. Let's do it. So you might be able to feel when you're doing that exercise all of those different vocal placements, especially if you go slow through it. So I would encourage you to just kind of give that a try and experiment with that. See if you can find what your chest voice feels like, what your head voice feels like, and what your crown voice feels like. Where are those placements in your body? Now, there is something that happens between the chest voice and the head voice, and there's a little fluctuation there. We like to call it the break. The break is that little spot that just kind of annoys you as you're singing sometimes because you sound like someone whose voice is changing. You might crack. So to give you an example, it kind of sounds like this. When I go over my break from my chest voice to my head voice, it'll sound like this. Yeah, right? There's that wounded animal sound that comes out of my voice. So it's our job as singers not to get rid of it, but to strengthen our muscles enough and our memory of where that break is and kind of glide over it. So that might sound like this. I'm going to go from my head voice down to my chest voice. As you notice, I didn't crack there. And that's not because my break doesn't exist. It does exist, but I just have to tread over it smoothly. I like to think about kind of like walking over very thin ice. Now, I'm from California. I've never seen ice, but it's probably the same. It's probably the same idea. Just like you don't want to, this will come after a lot of practice and just getting to know your voice, getting to know your chest voice and your head voice and your crown voice. Where do those things exist in you? You don't need to know the notes. You don't need to know which notes your break takes place from. You just need to know how it feels. The last thing I'm going to talk about is where we actually place the voice in our face when we're singing. Now, it might sound a little bit weird, but I'll give you an example of this. Some people, when they sing really kind of far back. So it might sound like this, ooh, right? It's a little more operatic. It's just deeper and bigger. If I were to talk like that, I'd kind of be talking like this. Hello, world. And some people will place the sound in their nose. So I'm looking at you, 90s boy bands. Yeah, baby, baby. It's like a very nasally sound. If we were to talk like that, we kind of talk like this. What I like to do is I like to bring the voice forward, just in front of the face in kind of this area, so that there's all kinds of sound coming out of your mouth. The way that I like to do this is by really imagining that your voice is a laser and picking a spot 5-10 feet away from you and trying to burn a hole with your laser voice through that thing when you're singing. What this does is this really engages the breath and it brings forth a really bright, natural sound to your voice. What I like in singers is I like for singers to sound the way they look and the way they speak, generally, at least to start. So when you talk, your voice should be a natural extension of your speaking voice. If I talk like this and sing like this, it's kind of a different thing. And it's harder for me as a vocal instructor to pick apart what's going on in there. And so I like to bring things really, really forward. We can always place it further back later. We can always place it in the nose or wherever we want. But for now, it's great to just have it forward. I promised that we would sing today, so I'm going to do a few scales that will take us through these different placements of the voice. But you know what? I'm going to need a piano first. Whoa, I'm magic. All right, so we're going to do an exercise, and everyone has a different voice, and so some parts of this exercise might not feel great to you. They might feel really high or really low. And so if that's the case, feel free to change the octave or just sit out for a few ones and come in when you're comfortable. So what I want you to do before we start this exercise is imagine there's a pipe running through the center of your body, starting right here at your sternum and then going all the way up above your head. And as we go up and down this scale, I want you to imagine that your voice is going up and down that pipe, almost like an elevator, going up and back down again. So we're going to start right here, and what we're going to go is on Zaw, Z-A-W. We're going to go Zaw. just like that. Let's try it together. Ready, and za. Good, now here. Za. Good, here. Za. Very nice. Nice chest voice. Za. Good. Za. So right there for me on my voice, this is where that break's starting to happen. So I'm starting to feel that little tickle in there as I go up. This won't be the same for all of you, but I just want to point out where it is for me at least. So keeping on going, here we go. Good. Last one. So even on that top note, it's kind of hard for me to get out because it's in head voice. And now that I've transitioned, I have to rethink everything. So what I want you to do is you could replay that part and you can try and notice where's the break, where's the head voice, where's the chest voice. Am I singing through those? And it's similar to that siren exercise we were doing, but this is just a more note-specific version and a slower version as we work our way up and down the piano. Okay, so that's the first exercise. The second exercise we're gonna do has to do with a little more of that laser-focused idea. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start on za. Za. And we're gonna really focus, picking a point on the back wall or wherever you are to bring that voice forward and out in front of your face. Here we go. Ready? It's za again, just going down. Ready, and za. Might be getting too low for some of you, but keep going if you can. And if not, just sit out, ready, and za. 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 Last one. Za. All right, great. So those are two exercises. You can replay those in this video and try and work your voice around them. And then as homework, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to keep doing those sirens this week to really just start to feel your voice, feel it out, feel and see if you understand where your chest voice is, where your head voice is, where your crown voice is, and how best you can make them stronger. Just start to notice them. And the second thing I want you to do is whenever you're singing, whatever you're singing this week, I want you to try that laser idea and really bring your voice forward when you're singing any song, even if it's just happy birthday or just something you're making up on the spot. Bring your voice forward and get in the habit of that. And if you want a little bit of extra credit, start to add the breathing in too. So the breathing from part 2 of this series, really starting to put this stuff together, because ultimately we're going to need all this stuff to work at the exact same time. Cool? All right, that's my video on placement. Next week's video is going to be on vowels, which is kind of a continuation. We'll do even more singing and a lot of talk about the shape of your mouth and all that fun stuff. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, how can we get you there? How can we get you there? I want to know. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all. I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. And yeah, have a great day. Thanks so much for watching this video. That's it. I'm signing off.